Hello, good evening, and welcome to what will soon be renamed the Monday Night Breakdown. Sunday Night Breakdown, Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you to look back over all the action this week in the British Basketball League. And Dave, this was another one of those mad weeks where I had 6 games in 7 days. So I haven't had time to go back and look at London Lions 102, Paris Basketball 106 after 2 overtimes, or Caledonia's fine win 63-66 in the Europe Cup. I've seen the last couple of minutes. My takeaway from the Lions game is they should have lost at the end of overtime, should have lost at the end of regulation, but probably should have won in the second period of overtime.
Firstly, does this now make you ubiquitous?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it does.
that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first bit of basketball ubiquity in history. Um, yeah, I mean, London was first in time, wasn't it? And
Mm,
yeah, it was a weird game. I mean, I thought even when it got to 6 point, they were down four with 30 seconds to go, and oh, sorry, and it didn't foul. And I thought,
mm,
oh, he's playing for points difference here.
yeah.
And then the Paris committed a ridiculous foul. Shorts committed a ridiculous foul, which gave them two foul shots, which made it a 2 point game in transition with like 10 seconds to go. Then London obviously get the foul in, and then Paris somehow managed to let Decker step into a walk-up 3 point shot
Mm.
when you need three to tie. I'm like, what? No, this doesn't. So this shit doesn't just happen in the BBL.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I use apologies for the language. It's like what? And obviously Sam Decker made it.
Mm,
I mean, you're up three, and you didn't have to dribble past anybody to get that shot off.
mm,
I was like, really? You've got to extend your defense and make them shoot one, having extended himself to get open. Yeah, so then that happened, and then in the first overtime, exactly the same. Paris basically looked to throw the game away.
mm,
Um, and then in the second overtime, they all fouled out.
mm.
But I think London were done
Yeah.
physically. Decker was on one leg. Philip was, these guys are all played 25 minutes all season.
Mm,
And suddenly some of them are playing 35, 36 minutes.
mm.
At that level, of that intensity of game. And I just thought they ran out of gas a little bit at the end. But hell of a game, though.
Yeah, and a good win for Caledonia as well, beating last year's champions. I haven't looked close enough at it. I know the roster is quite different to last year, but it's still last year's champions.
Yeah, it's a very weird game. Well, not a weird game, a very European game. It really quite competitive. You have your 100 odd mad Polish fans in the
Mm,
corner there making a lot of noise. And all those, with the Scots being such a kind of a quiet, reserved race, it was obviously they were always going to make more noise. The Poles were going to make more noise, and it was kind of you could see. Well, I watched it back. I didn't watch it live. I didn't watch all of it back. I watched the first half and the last 5 minutes. But you could see kind of the image that team had been built in the Gladiators team. It was a team built for Europe. It matched up with the other team. It matched
mm.
up with the
Yeah,
Polish
yeah,
team.
yeah.
There wasn't much quickness in the game. There was a lot of structure, a lot of competitiveness, a lot of physical competitiveness. And they had, I think Pat Whelan made some plays as well. And it kind of came down to not who scored last, but who got the last stop.
Yeah, yeah,
One of those games,
yeah. Did
if you
watch
were
the last
relying on
couple of
either team
minutes.
to make a basket to win, you weren't going to be sure about it.
Mm,
But again, it's an incredibly good win for us because
mm.
the Gladiators obviously they've increased their budget, but they're still primarily a BBL team
Yeah,
with
yeah.
BBL players. They're imports. Dubus has come from Denmark. Mo is a rookie. Um, Onwas was German Pro B until a
Mm,
couple of years ago. Police obviously good standard in the Czech Republic, Czechia, and who else? And Jovovic is a young Serbian kid.
mm,
Basically, he hasn't really come out of the Serbian second division. So that's a and Buttrick, again, okay resume, but nothing beyond BBL. So, to put that team together and to compete the way they did and to beat a team from a good league. I don't know whether they're as good as they were last year. I couldn't say. I didn't watch them last year. But Poland is a good league.
mm,
It's a well-paying league. We've lost players to there before. and to turn them over, I think much to their surprise, given the fact that the coach managed to pick up a particularly interesting technical foul with about 10 seconds to go. I think to turn them over is a real feather in
result, yeah.
Caledonia's cap.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
certainly, again, it's another notch for just saying, actually, if you've
We're
been
not
telling
bad, are we? The little
if
crazy
you've been
people
telling
on
me
the
for the last 10
island, they're not
years or
too
15
bad.
years, you can tell me the last 15 years that the BBL is rubbish, and I've been arguing back. Well, I was right and you were wrong. Bye.
So I was warned against it, but I did watch back Plymouth City Patriots 55, Sheffield Sharks 67. Allen in the starting lineup for this. Ramsey was out. Pipkins only played 9:57. I didn't see why he left the game just before halftime, but he never came back. Levi Spencer that obviously signed, but he wasn't registered at that point, so he didn't play.
Is it Levi Spencer or Spencer Levi?
Sorry, Spencer Levi. The problem was I saw
don't
it
do
written
that.
down the wrong way round once, and
Yeah,
now I can't get it out of my head.
don't do
Spencer
that to my
Levi.
brain, please. It's got
Yeah,
enough
yeah, yeah,
rubbish images about to
yeah,
come
yeah.
out.
The
Spencer,
Spencer
yeah,
Levi, yeah. And the other new signing, Green, wasn't. I don't think
Terrell
he'd
Green.
signed at that point,
He
but
hadn't signed at that point.
he
They'd
looks
released
20.
the Andre Johnson, who
Yeah, yeah.
just shot one above the break, three too many, I think.
Quite possibly. So first 6 minutes of this, Plymouth 2 for 14 from the floor, but they were only 6 points down. They were only 10-4 down at that point, which sort of gave you a tale of what was to come.
Well, firstly, I mean, it's a fixture which they played 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Not really. Secondly, it's a Wednesday night, so it's a bit of a trip down there for Sheffield on a Wednesday night. So you can't expect them to be flying. And you've got Ramsey, who's basically their generator, their engine at this point. So he's not playing. So that means that Plymouth have to be thinking this is a winnable basketball game. But at this point, it may continue for a couple of weeks. To yet, Plymouth are not a cohesive unit, and in basic terms, they're a bit of a mess. And Sheffield
I think
didn't
we'll pick up on the cohesion in the
yeah,
next game
in
as
due
well.
course, yeah. But even before that game, Sheffield got better shots the whole game. They just didn't knock many of them down. Sheffield's defense was solid. Plymouth at times, you wondered where they were going to score the ball in the first half in particular, where they're going to get a good look. Other than Atwood, who kind of flits around and picks his spots and gets the basketball 15 feet and can score the ball. The rest of them really struggle with Sheffield's defense. Dusher is way off where he was last year. That's a major, major problem for them because they don't have, if you're in the NBA and you've got a 9-man rotation, if you're not producing, there's numbers 10, 11, 12 waiting to come and take it. If you're in the BBL and you've got a 7 or 8-man rotation, you've got 1 or 2 guys who just hasn't hit his straps.
Well, you just think he was player of the month at this time last year.
Yeah, then you can't. I didn't look. I was actually annoyed because I was going to check his numbers before coming on. I didn't look, but I don't remember him making a shot this season. I'll be honest. And it's not just making a shot, just his general kind of is. There's times last year he was BBL John Stockton. He was just he just running pick and roll, and you couldn't stop him when he went right in the pick and roll. You found him out, but he had Rashad Hassan to play with. Who gives you an extra kind of catch and finish option, and Plymouth really haven't had that. So they've gone, their numbers are way down, and the game itself was uninspiring.
Yeah, well, Sheffield got up 8. Sheffield got up 8 mid-second quarter. Patriots had 7 in a row, 26-27 though. And you're thinking it'll get better in the second half, and then there's 2 shot clock violations to start the second half. And then kind of Sheffield sort of edged out mainly from free throws to a 10-point lead. And as you say, Plymouth never quite had enough offense to make you think they were going to get back into it.
No, this was a typical Sheffield game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they had enough nous and energy about them and athleticism about them to not give up anything easy. If you hold a team at 55 points on their own floor, they're a pro team. It doesn't really matter what your offense is like. And they needed the win, Sheffield. They dropped a couple of games. But I mean, fix it. I mean, if you can give me a good reason why that game needs to be played on a Wednesday night in Plymouth in the sixth week of the season when they've already played once down there.
I assume the half the answer is venue availability, but that doesn't answer the away team availability. To answer your previous question, Elvisi Dusa is 1 for 20 from the 3-point line this season and has scored 19 points in 10 games.
I mean, that's just that's ridiculous. He must have averaged 15 and 8 last year at times. That's just so and so his skills haven't disappeared. So that's a whole kind of feel thing. It's a mentality thing. So that indicates more than anything that that something's not right in the state of Denmark. That was Shakespeare.
Yeah, indeed. Faulkner 14.
It's close, isn't it?
Wiley 11 and 10, Johnson 11 and Atwood 11 and 7 rebounds, 35% from the floor, 5 for 25 from 3. Cook 17 and 7, Nichols 15.6 rebounds, 5 assists, Allen 10 points and 8 rebounds. They were 46% from the
you just
floor,
said it there.
I mean, 16.
I actually remember a little bit more about this now, and I remember thinking that the only player who came out of the game with any particular credit was Bennett Cook. Who I say credit. I mean, obviously the Sheffield guys did what they meant to do, but I thought Cook was excellent. He wasn't matched up against anybody who could guard him, obviously. He was really good. But that's 32 points from their front court, Cook and Nichols, whereas Plymouth got virtually nothing from their front court.
Let's go to Thursday night. Leicester Riders 94, Surrey Scorchers 86. Still no hunt or for Surrey or Lowell for Leicester. Surrey are 9 of the first 10 points on their way to a 7-21 lead. Midway through the first quarter, they came out firing, and Leicester were anything but.
Well, I thought Leicester played the worst 15 minutes of basketball I've probably ever seen Leicester play. Or actually, I've probably seen in the league this year. And then Surrey said, hold my beer, have 20 minutes of ours. Played even worse. I got a little bit, frustrated with the kind of the analysis of this game because it was, they need to play with more energy, they need to play more defense. They just need to play better, both teams. I thought it was with Leicester, you kind of understand it a little bit. They are rookies, these starting 5 rookies. And that means that their skills are going to be there, but their understanding and their application at times is going to fluctuate. And at the moment, they're on a massive roller coaster. And again, who saved them? It was kind of Mackenzie and Washington. If Mackenzie and Washington hadn't come in the game, then hadn't been there coming in the game, it could have got horrendously ugly. Surrey played with nothing to lose, and then as soon as they had something to lose, they played with everything to lose. So
Robinson, Cooper, Steele, threes, Jameson inside. Jameson even hit a 3-pointer at one stage as well.
I heard the exclamation in your voice which said, "There's a stat coming. There's a stat coming."
I looked it up. He did actually go 2 for 2 in his first game, but that was in the cup, so I hadn't got that to hand at the point. I've since looked it up. But he'd made 1 before that in his time in the British basketball.
Well, I mean, I thought that was a tipping point in the game, because from kind of that moment on, the middle of the second quarter, they got very they varied between kind of cocksure and tentative. Their shot selection disappeared insofar as they weren't shooting the open ones anymore. They were kind of at times hesitating and at times putting the ball down, running into trouble. Their defense dropped off. They were up 23. And I remember
20 to 43 with 5:28 to go.
They're up 23 with 5:20 to go. So you come up to a timeout and they got to stop. And I remember dribbling just actually literally in their own court, in their own half court. I think Jameson maybe threw the ball to Gooden or somebody, and it went out of bounds next to the scorer's table. They turned it over without, just an utterly kind of fruitless, pointless turnover. And I just remember thinking, because you're always looking at that point for the time that the comeback might start. You're always looking for that kind of, and it's never one play, obviously, but you're always looking for that tipping point, which is okay. There's something going on here. You've got your foot on their throat. You've got to keep pressing it down. You can't start throwing away. And then after the timeout, the media timeout, I remember thinking Robinson's not in the game. It's like, hang on, they're up because they're up 23 or 21 or 19 or whatever it was for the media timeout. and Robinson's only played like 6 or 7 minutes at that point. And the last 5 minutes of the first half are the most important 5 minutes of that game.
Mm.
If they win the last 5 minutes of the first, 23 points over 20 minutes over 25 minutes is nothing. Not when you're Leicester. 30 points over 20 minutes is almost, you should never lose that game, because you've got to get into the rhythm of the second half and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And it was one of the things that coaches do, and I never understand it. Lloyd had Justin Robinson actually literally sat on the scorer's table on the chair to come in, but didn't put him in immediately after the timeout. It's almost like, right, let's have one play, then Justin, you come in. I'm thinking he needs to be in the game, because he's the one who's good, because they couldn't score, and they couldn't score for 5 minutes. And when and Leicester couldn't initially score the ball very well, eventually they get a couple of runouts, then they get a bit of confidence, and suddenly you said there's a timeout with 15, and then last 6 points of the half, they're up 9, and at that point the die was almost cast. I couldn't see.
Leicester went 16-2 in the last 5 minutes. Washington had a couple of threes, other guys getting to the free throw line.
They scored 43 points before that in 15 minutes, and then they scored 2.
Yeah.
That's the game.
They're still up 9 at halftime, but as you say, looking wobbly. And then Pinson and Thomas dragged it back, and then Thomas hit 2 threes, and Leicester are 50-49 ahead. So that's a 30-6 run from 23 down to 1 point up.
And it was actually another play. It wasn't just to throw on the ball away. It was at the moment when I think Goodin went under a screen on Washington, and Washington just stepped to the left and shot it. And it might have been Goodin, it might have been somebody else. I remember thinking, you guys, the intensity, you have to keep the intensity going another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes. You have to break the opposition, and then didn't. And from that moment on, Leicester have more talent than Surrey. They have more athletic talent. They have more length. They have arguably more depth. Surrey didn't really know whether to stick or twist with their lineups insofar as did they want offense or defense. So Cooper hardly played in the second half, and he's a guy who, he clearly can space the floor, but Theo was kind of playing ahead of him because he knows the system a bit more. And the guards, is it Gooden, is it Lawrence, is it Robinson, which of those guys are going to play? And Josh Steele ended up sat down for quite a while, and I thought they never quite got their lineups right. And as I say, Leicester have some really talented players, no question. Pinson's really talented, Thomas is really talented, Asbury's really talented. They have significantly more substantial college resumes than the Surrey guys, or indeed most of the rookies in this league. Holmes, Big 12 player, but they have to put it together, and at the moment their defense is not great. And when Surrey stopped attacking their defense properly, when Leicester got some stops and Rob was able to kind of move around with some lineups and get some of his better defensive players in the game, that game changed. And the game always turns on defense.
Asbury made a couple of threes, then he had a steal on the buzzer as well of the third quarter. Yeah. So Leicester went into the fourth quarter up 4, and then before you know it, Holmes Pinson pushed it out to 11, and they were actually quite comfortable from being 23
and they scored. Leicester scored what? 72 points in 25 minutes. 74 points in 25 minutes. When you that's it can happen in games, right? But when you've got your foot on the team's throat for it to turn around like that quickly, 20 points in 15 minutes and then 74 in the next 25. It's like, you haven't got you haven't got a winning culture there. You're struggling with winning. If you look at that Surrey team at this point in time, there's one guy on that team who's a proven winner, and that's Justin Robinson in this league. That's it. The other guys who've been there a while. Obviously, Josh Steele and Theo have been injured last year, but even Theo before that, they didn't win many games. Josh was at Manchester, they did okay, but didn't win any trophies or anything like that. And I thought I saw Justin get a bit frustrated near the end, because I think he knew that was a game that they could have won. And they weren't at this point ready. Against that, as I say, Lloyd's playing a guy, Elliot Bailey, who's playing fine, who's basically 6'7". He's having to play the 5 spot at times.
Yeah.
So they are undermanned. There's no question about that. You know, he's playing more than you would probably have expected him to have to play when he signed him. But their roster construction isn't great because, as I say, you've got Mohamed Wang, Cooper, and Teo, who are basically all playing the same position. And often that's behind Josh Steele. You know, so there's Mohamed Wang and Cooper. That's 3 imports. You know, and I'm not sure that is particularly well thought through with what they've got. So they were issues. As I say, they were abominable for 15 minutes. I mean, defensively, offensively, almost like. Of course, you have to remember they're rookies, and when they're rookies, you always go back to, okay, what's happened before between these teams? Leicester's beaten them. Now they're playing them. What place in the league are they? They're bottom, or they're 1-6 or 1-7. You know, and as much as you're a coach, as much as you're being around the league, and as much as you're telling your guys this is a different game, this is that, it does not sink in. It does not get into their brains until they say it happened to themselves.
Yeah.
And I've been around some of the best players in this league. In their first time round, it didn't matter how much we told them what was going to happen. They didn't believe it until we saw it, until they saw it themselves.
Yeah.
So every game for them is, and every situation they're in is going to be different. Every kind of learning experience is going to be different. How do you deal with teams when you've beaten them? How do you deal with teams when you've lost to them? How do you deal with teams when there's a bit of a ruckus, like with last week? How do you deal with playing against London? How do you deal with getting up for back-to-backs? Everything is new. That is really tough, but they've got the talent to compete.
So in the era that they had biggest lead on the live stats, I think it was 2016 it started to do, that was the biggest comeback from 23 down. The previous one was Bristol with 22 points up with 15 minutes to go as well. I actually looked at the play-by-play on that, against Worcester, and ended up losing in overtime. Thomas, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Holmes, 7 of 10 shooting for 18 points. Asbury, 3 of 6 from behind the arc, 17 points. Wang, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Jameson, numbers the wrong way around for him, 15 points and 9 rebounds. Robinson, 13 points and 5 assists. They were 12 of 30 from 3, but a lot of that was early on when they were building that 23.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the one game they won, they were 20 of 40. You know, I think they made 10 of 15 in the first half of this game. I think
it was something close to that, yeah.
Something like that, you know. So, you know, and that's what I'm talking about with Leicester's defense. And I mean, even Rose said at one point when Cooper got a standalone 3 with somebody in front of him and no one putting a hand up, so, you know, you can't play a defense like that. You know, these younger teams, everybody sees the offense, everybody sees it. You know, the best teams are the best defensive teams. Not even close. They're the ones who are going to win more games.
Let's go to Friday. Bristol Flyers 74, Cheshire Phoenix 70. Keedy Johnson with a wrist injury was out. Royal Graham Bell with an ankle injury was out. Obviously, Rye is still out for Cheshire. Jacob hitting shots early on. Jack responding, but Flyers had a lead by as many as 8 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, Cheshire were a little bit flat, I thought. Made sure Jack catch and shoot very, very quick. He's becoming Dirk Williams 2.0. If not off the dribble, but certainly off the catch. But the rest of them, other than Charles, kept them in the game in the first half. He was exceptional, both ends, off the dribble, off the jump shot. But without Rise, that third kind of creator behind Holden and Rideau, it does give them a little bit of a gap. Bristol are in your face. The thing that struck me about this game, probably more than any other game, was just the competitiveness of both teams. I thought both teams were really competitive in that, and you don't see that in all the games. And it's kind of an intangible, but it's also absolutely visible. If you're looking for it, you know, you see the little things, and it's not just diving on the floor and having everybody look at you and say, "Oh, look, I dived on the floor. Hey, give me a big round of applause." It's all the little stuff, the rebounding, the boxing out, the battling for stuff, the motivation, the getting you, the high five, and the getting around your team. And Bristol have basically built their whole organisation on that over the past couple of years, and it's a pretty good starting block. When in BBL terms, in particular, British Basketball League terms, in particular, the game itself, Bristol may have benefited from having less players. albeit, Raul Graham-Bell's been playing really well and Keely Johnson's been the guy who's been breaking down defenses for them. But it does mean the other guys have to play and they have to step up.
Yeah.
And Ollison and Jacob in particular are both, very talented shooters who've got enough of a handle to get to the rim. And I thought they impacted the game positively. And Raf Thomas Edwards obviously gets to play a lot and he plays physically.
Yeah, a little too physically in this one, though. Shagwell
Yeah.
pulled the Cheshire back. They got up 1. Knicks were up 7 early in the third quarter, and Thomas Edwards got his 4th foul in the third quarter with 4:11 to go. But actually, they were playing pretty well at that point, Bristol, and him sitting down didn't really make that much difference. They had a 17-3 run to lead 50-43.
Yeah. I'm still not sure on Cheshire. I'm not sure what you're going to get because, they have, Kristen really solid in this game, really solid. Holden,
his shoes less solid in this game.
Yeah, shoes indeed, yes. Holden is the absolute up and down guy. Michael Jordan, the basketball player one day, Michael Jordan, the actor the next day. He's long. He gets in there. He gets in the lane. He misses layups in transition. It's like, really, what's going on? And ultimately, you have to create shots from somewhere. Now, the difficulty with Cheshire for much of this game in relation to Bristol was that Bristol are right in your face, so they're not giving Skylar White those open 3-point looks, and they're also they're also rebounding like demons on the offensive glass, and they didn't really have that much kind of separation in relation to getting open shots, Cheshire, and that's why Bristol pulled away. But what all that energy does eventually is that it does dissipate a little bit, and if you hang in for long enough and you compete for long enough, and Ben Thomas put Greg Wild in with 4.5 minutes to go, just to give him, which indicates that, that would not have been in his game plan. It might have been putting Greg Wild in with 4 minutes to go in the second quarter, but it would not have been in his game plan to put him in with 4 minutes to go in the game when he hasn't played. But he put him in to add to that, to keep competitive.
Yeah.
And, and to maintain that energy, I suppose, that's the logic for it.
Yeah.
And stick in that way, then you're always going to have a chance at the end. And that's what nearly came about.
Yeah. So Bristol, after a blown offensive rebound, Cheshire got out in the break and Wild made a layup, 69-67, 2:20 to go. Good D by White after a switch on Ollison, but he makes a tough shot on the buzzer. Offensive rebound by he takes a tough shot. Sorry, offensive rebounds by Thomas Edwards, but he threw it away. And then other end of the floor, Jacob ended up on the floor. White misses an open 3, and then they come back down 1:17 to go. White with a foul, but it's on the floor. It's the team fourth, so no shot. 1:15 to go. Wild probably overplaying on Lucas, gets called for a foul, and it's 2 free throws, 71-67. Jack misses a 3, Wild chasing the loose ball, and it's one of them where he wasn't quite sure whether he could let it go into the backcourt and get it or not. Didn't want to take the risk. Saved it, but in doing that, throws it away as a result. Lucas ran the clock. I thought he still went a little early, actually, Lucas.
He
ran
they always
time.
do. At times they always go early. Just my head is blown by
it. He missed the 3. There's almost a steal, but in the end, there's a foul on Thomas Edwards. So that was his 5th foul. 37 seconds.
Just know what you've just described there is a minute and a half of basketball without anybody scoring.
Yes.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about the competitiveness of the game.
Yeah.
There was nothing being given easy. The reason White misses that 3 is because he's not had early looks to get into a rhythm. The same with Lucas, all of that stuff. These teams are really going at each other.
Then timeout advance. Jack couldn't really find any room, misses a 3. White with a steal after a defensive rebound. He then takes it to the corner, misses a 3. But Jack with the offensive rebound, put back, and he's fouled. For the AM1, 19.3 seconds to go, 71-70.
Yeah, it was almost like that was the only way anyone was going to make a play. No one was making a shot. Yeah, and Maceo Jack made an unbelievable play.
So they went for a steal, couldn't get it, so had to foul. Lucas, who had actually been a bit poor from the line, made 2 free throws, 73-70. Rideau to the basket. The foul's called on the floor. He missed the layup anyway, but it was one of them where it was.
I checked that back. I thought that was an okay call. I thought it was on the floor. Just
and he missed it anyway, so it wouldn't have. Well, he would have got free throws, I suppose. It's a sideline ball instead. 4 seconds ago, Kristen misses a three. White fouls Green on the rebound. He makes the first, and that's the game.
Yeah, basically, no one could make a shot at the end. It mattered, and they didn't have the ability to get their head down and kind of drive to the basket. As you say, Riddle tried, got fouled on the grass, fouled on the floor. I thought it was a good win for Bristol. It would be nice to see those teams going at each other fully fledged, with Rye on one side and with Graham Bell and Johnson on the other side. But the both teams were really competitive. It'll also be interesting to see if that kind of competitive level remains in February and March, when they're both firmly ensconced in their playoff positions, and it doesn't really matter as much. But no, I thought it was really it was an intriguing watch. It was nice. It was a bit of a kind of an antidote to some of the other sanitized kind of your shot, my shot stuff that I've been watching. A bit old school.
It was definitely more enjoyable than the other game on Friday night, which I had to watch both of them back one after the other. Ollison 23, Green 15 points and 13 rebounds, Jacob 13 points and 8 rebounds, Jack 6 of 12 for 3 for 23 points, Shogwa 14 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, Christian with 14. Let's go to said other game. Newcastle Eagles 86, London Lions 99. Green coming off the bench, Neighbour starting, Sharma and Taylor out. It was actually pretty even early on, wasn't it? Score for score. It looked like it might be.
Well, two things. I mean, being in the arena, two things that were fairly immediately apparent was, firstly, the much hoped for. We've just played a double overtime game, a time to rest Decker and Philip and a few of the other guys wasn't going to happen. And secondly, the reason for that was because Newcastle had got London's attention.
Yeah.
Partly because the only team that's been close to beating them, and they were close. They had a really good tie game with 48 seconds left. 2 shots won. And they've been close to beating them. And also, there was a little bit of talking in that game, but I think that was a secondary thing. I think it was the fact that this team thinks they can beat us.
Yeah.
And I think London showed
up. Your boy Lasker going on and guaranteeing it as well.
Did he? Well, okay. He's got his own podcast to sell down. We don't do that type of kind of cheap, tacky, commercialistic stuff. We keep it real. Keep it down. Get it. No, seriously. That I think really made a difference, because I think Newcastle had London's full attention. That was and given the roster they put out, and given the way Decker looked on Tuesday night in the second overtime in particular. I thought that was pretty apparent. Newcastle starting 5 did fine, albeit defensively. Line up with Neighbour and Delpeshin is going to struggle a little bit. The game was basically won and lost in probably 8 minutes after the first media timeout to the beginning of the second quarter. Newcastle's bench got obliterated by London's bench, particularly Conor Morgan. Conor Morgan was he played like cat and mouse with Taj Green. Taj Green came off the bench and played like he wanted to know why he wasn't starting, to be honest. But not offensively, defensively. Defensively, I think there was 3 consecutive plays in the end of the first quarter. The first one, Nelson cut under the basket and got the ball, and Green was guarding Morgan at the top, and Green does what shot blockers do, what he's done for most of it, and he takes 3 steps down towards the ball, stuck in no man's land. Nelson fires it out to Morgan. Morgan makes the 3. Green's ignored the scouting report. Next time down, they put Morgan in the screen and roll. Morgan flares out off the screen and roll to the weak side. Green just follows him like, oh my God, he's a shooter, I've got to guard him. Just runs after him, leaving Nelson the free lane at the basket, and Ward Hibbert has to come across and foul him. And then the third play, I think in a row, there was a screen and roll on the weak side, and Green and whoever was McGill maybe were 2-on-1 on the ball and didn't communicate, and he threw it to Morgan, one dribble and a dunk. And it was literally
and actually it impacted on him at the other end, because he was missing layups.
He missed layups and missed finishes, and and ultimately that matchup kind of summarised the difference between the groups. Now, I was surprised that Newcastle stayed with that lineup at the beginning of the second quarter because Austin had kind of kept them going a little bit. Got to the rim a couple of times, got a couple of offensive rebounds, so they're only down 8. But it looked pretty. Defensively, it was pretty horrible, and they came out the same lineup and Green blew a fast break layup on a kind of a lob pass. Grantham comes down, strokes a 3. Mark calls a timeout 27 seconds into the second quarter and then comes back again with the same lineup, which I just didn't get at that point. Jordan Johnson was +1 at that point. Jordan Johnson came back into the game 6 minutes after going out from the Eagles being up 1. And when he comes back in, they're down 17.
So the run I've got is from 3:33 in the first quarter, where it was 19-21. The next 6 minutes were 25-5. Morgan, Grantham, Decker, Salawati all hitting threes, and it's 24-46.
I mean, then you've got things like my take on, and that's the game. I mean, there's no point talking about the rest of the game. That is the game because there's no way London were going to lose that game after that. Newcastle were playing for a little bit of, I don't even say pride. They were playing to stay competitive, and Newcastle can score the ball. They have players who can score the ball. That was never gonna be a change. But there was never any jeopardy in the game after that. And the reason those minutes are so vital is because when you're playing against London, you can't have an uncompetitive unit on the floor. For more than 2 minutes. You've got to be, you can't, because the moment they get 10 points separation on you, it's like a cat with a mouse. You're done. You're not getting back. The only chance you've got is if you're fighting them blow for blow, and then maybe you get into their heads, like last time when Philip got into, got a bit antsy, and maybe you get a bit twisty, maybe crowd gets behind, and maybe you get a couple of calls, and suddenly you're in the game with 5 minutes left. The minute that beginning of the second quarter happened, and again, it's McGill and 4 bench players for Newcastle. And primarily that means that Whitfield, who's made a couple of threes, it hasn't played during that run. Johnson, who's the main guy basically to get them out of difficulty, hasn't played during that run. That's the game done. Doesn't matter about saying the other guys, giving them the rest period. It doesn't matter. You're done. And I know because we were, when we were involved, and we used to play teams who would play us hard, and they would think, oh, they're as good as us, and then our guys would be like, hey, we got to show these guys a lesson, because they can't come and play. They're not as good as us, so we're going to show them the second time. And that was exactly what I saw. I mean, I thought London were very, very impressive. Obviously, with Olaseni with a different level. Delpesh disappointed me a little bit in his physical competitiveness with Olaseni. Not so much the screen and roll stuff, but he got offensive rebounds, and these guys are about the same kind of size. I looked at the numbers. Delpesh's numbers are way down this year. He's 5 points a game. He's averaging 1.5 defensive rebounds in 22 minutes. That's way down on his normal, on what he's produced over the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, literally, you're going to get 1 in 22 minutes just by standing there. Go and get a foul shot. You know what I mean? 1.5 defensive rebound. It's not that he's not playing hard. It's just that his head seems to be spinning a bit. He's doing, and I think Newcastle need to simplify a lot, and they need to simplify their defense, in particular, because you can't make mental mistakes like Green made, leaving Conor Morgan to go and find Nelson under the basket. You just can't do that. That's losing basketball. And defensively, they're still not very good. McGill at one point went under a handoff on Solowade. He just stepped up and shot the 3 in the first half as well. And that just kind of builds momentum. To a certain degree, I think the guards are probably playing a bit to conserve energy because they know they have to do the majority of the scoring. And that's impacting them defensively. London, they didn't need, obviously Sharma is a massive piece for them. He wasn't even there. It does mean that Conor Morgan can kind of play that 5 role, which in BBL terms is dynamite, absolute dynamite. Morgan didn't have to get out of 4th gear, the other Morgan, Matt Morgan. And I just thought they came up with a purpose. And something, and this is a thing that I hope Taj Green looks at, Conor Morgan destroyed that game. He destroyed Newcastle in that game. He didn't have to beat his chest once.
No.
Didn't have to talk to anybody once. A couple of times he made a shot and he looked at his teammates like, yeah, that's fine. And it's fine. And I don't mind the stuff where you big up the crowd after the whistle's dead and you're walking back to the bench. That's great. But, the economy of movement and the economy of, I'll not say effort because the effort was there, but the economy of movement and the skill set and the fundamental understanding of what he had to do and where he had to be. It was like, as I say, it was like watching one team learning calculus, another team learning arithmetic, and that's something that Newcastle are going to have to get over very quickly to get better. It's something that everybody who faces London is going to find, just because, and you can be a smart defensive team and still get well beat, because that happened with Sheffield last week. So it doesn't mean that London's not the measuring stick for everybody in this league. But they were, in the first half, they were awfully good. And in the second half, they just cruised.
Yeah. Johnson, 20 points, 5 assists. He was a +4 to your point in 26 minutes and 40.
Well, what happened in the second half? They won a 10 point run the last 5 minutes. So those plus minus numbers aren't great, a great indication. But in the first half, if you've got a unit that was rolling, which they had a unit that was rolling, and then the 4 bench players come in with McGill, and it just, it lasts. You can give that 2 minutes. You can't give that more than 2 minutes. Austin also, they lost Austin as well. He had a bit of a groin niggle, so he was actually playing really well. He's really up for it. He was aggressive, athletic, doing what he needed to do. He had a groin niggle, so he didn't come back. But even so, London were really good.
Whitfield 16, McGill 15, although 5 of 17. They were 20 for 57 from 2-point range.
Yeah, they're not getting scores from inside. They're not scoring. They don't have any kind of cohesion between the guards and the bigs at the moment. That needs to change because Darius can score. Delpesh averaged 12 a game at Bristol last year. Green obviously 18 a game last year, and Neighbour's a shooter. So, you can't get by if those guys are giving you a combination of like 15, 20 points a game. They've got to be up in the 30s. That means you've got to get more shots.
7 of 10, Conor Morgan for 17 points. Olaseni nearly a triple-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 6 of 8 shooting. Grantham, 12.6 rebounds, 51 bench points for London.
Those assists for Olaseni are just kind of indicative of just how together London are, because those assists come when Newcastle were kind of hard hedging or trapping the screen and roll. And Olaseni was catching the ball on a short roll. And basically what that means is when Olaseni sets the screen, his man is being drawn to the basketball where the guard has got it, probably because Morgan made 9 threes on them last time. So they're pressing up on the basketball. That leaves Olaseni free to slip in behind. But then another guy comes from the help to try and stop him scoring, otherwise he'd score every time. And what Olaseni was doing was catching the ball on a short roll around the foul line, and then he was hitting the right man on the perimeter for threes, or on the baseline for Decker or Grantham for dunks. And to have that level of skill, they filleted them. And Olaseni in particular filleted them in that position. The options were awesome.
No game Saturday, so let's come to Sunday. 2 thrillers on Sunday. Let's start at the Pavilions. Plymouth City Patriots 105, Surrey Scorchers 110 after overtime. So they did have Green and Levi in, and as soon as they came in, you could actually see what they were going to bring to the table, couldn't you? Green hit a couple of threes, Levi getting after the boards. Patriots with a slender lead early on.
Yeah, wow, what a game, eh? I don't want to be unfair or cruel, but it was kind of 2 bald men fighting over a comb.
Oh dear.
I'm sorry. To start with, what just a bit of everything. This did. We get about 3 of these games at the Pavilions every year where all hell kind of breaks loose in different directions. Deal with Green and Levi first. Green played at Glasgow, but he never looked healthy when he was in Glasgow.
No.
He's a Canadian guy. I remember I was thinking I may have been around, or maybe the year after I finished, but I had a scouting report on him from Fab's mates in Toronto about basically being a guy who could really shoot the ball. Really, really shoot the ball. Not the most mobile kind of foreman, but could score the ball. And a reliable, solid guy who's going to shoot the ball when he's meant to is probably what Plymouth needed. Less kind of random movements, because Wiley and Atwood are both kind of guys who look for their spots as opposed to give you any kind of normative spacing. So that's just kind of a solid spot. Now he has to be healthy, and he has to prove he can shoot the ball that well, because he was 2 of 10 in this game from the 3-point line. He probably chucked up 2 or 3, which were ill-advised. Levi just reminded. It was like David Ulf reincarnated.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I thought he was. That might be unfair, and then it might be fair, and I like David Ulf a lot. In relation to what he gives the team, it might be that Levi provides a little bit more, but he went. Um, he's undersized, clearly. 6'6". Guys with beards like that are always generally a couple of inches undersized because it's aimed at accentuating how hard they are. For the beard as well. Remember a guy called Mike Kingma for Glasgow?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
Uh,
wasn't he in Star Wars?
Yeah,
He was a
he was
stormtrooper
6'9" with
or
fuzzy
something
beard and
like
all
that.
that type of
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah, but as I said, it always makes you look a bit tougher.
yeah.
Um, and he played like that. To be absolutely fair to him, the other guy he kind of reminded me of a little bit, albeit without the post game. And again, it's a Plymouth kind of reboot. Is Matt Schneck?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Remember Matt Schneck? He was
Yeah,
probably a bit better with the basketball from
yeah. I
what I
think
saw.
better scorer.
Better scorer,
Yeah.
but well, we've only seen Levi for one game. I
Well, we
don't think
have. Yeah,
the
yeah.
ball to the post that much, but in relation to his kind of constant physical presence and when you ran into him, you kind of stayed running to him. That was kind of similar. So yeah, so that helped them, and the fact that they played 35 minutes each in an overtime game probably gives an idea as to what PJ thinks of them,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to what he thinks about some of the other guys. I mean, Wiley only played 11 minutes. So in theory, that's an improvement, but then they've got certain issues in the backcourt to sort out, which we'll get to in a minute.
We'll get to in a minute.
Go on.
Robinson, Cooper, Good, and Teo all hitting threes. They're up 8 at halftime. They started the third quarter really well. It's 43-57, and it just looks like that's the way it's going. And then suddenly it turned around. Surrey couldn't score. Plymouth 16-3 run, 63-62.
Yeah,
And they were having
it's fair to say
flashbacks.
from the evidence before us that Surrey are not necessarily a team who knows how to play from ahead.
No.
Because you're right, they were bouncing around and they were making plays, and Josh Steele's driving down the middle and dunking, and their spacing is pristine, and they're getting good shots, and then suddenly it's like almost flick a switch, and whoa, the ball's not dropping, but they're not getting those same good looks, and they become a little bit tentative. The rotations change up a little bit, and the opposition, are able to score on them, and they kind of wilted a little bit. And they really shouldn't have wilted because, I just, as I say, I'm not sure that they're the outside of Robinson, that they're mentally the strongest team I've ever seen.
No, they don't look
Because I thought that game was there to be put away. And, for instance, Sheffield on Wednesday night in a fairly similar position, in fact, never getting that far up. It was never any doubt they were going to win that game. They were going to keep doing what they were doing. They were going to keep getting their stops. And ultimately, Plymouth would just kind of fade away. And that wasn't the case with Surrey. And Plymouth benefited from speeding the game up. They played a bit faster. Johnson is Taylor Johnson is a kind of a constant menace off the dribble. He's always looking to attack and get to the rim and make shots and all that type of stuff. And they benefit, I think, from PJ deciding that, okay, it's Levi and Green.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first half, he's testing them out, seeing what they've got. Second half is like, roll the dice, go on,
See what they got, put it out
yeah,
there.
and Levi in particular, maybe even out rebounded Jameson. He certainly played him 50-50 if he didn't out rebound.
Yeah.
And on top of that, thing about Levi I like was there was a bit of physical contact down low, and he took a charge and he took a hard foul, and he played with a presence that they have not had.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, whether or not that's
so.
a first game presence, or whether that's going to be something he's able to play with that energy intensity throughout the year, that's going to be a different question.
Well, hopefully the latter, because that's really what they
need.
It was
absolutely
a big hole in their lineup, and he looks like he might fill it.
That is the only non-wooden floor in the league, and if he plays like that all season long, he might not have much in the way of knees left by the end of it. So that all kind of, and then it went, it was kind of who's going to make.
Let's get to the end then. 1:38 to go. Faulkner with a 3, 89-82, and here's the point where you think, oh, Plymouth are going to do that, and then Wang takes over the game, 6 points in a row to 89-85.
Yeah, well, he took over the game. I mean, Plymouth made a 3, and Wang's dunking it by the time they've all stopped jumping up and down, isn't he?
I know.
And I'm not sure how that happened because the camera kind of cut away from it a little bit. But it's like, that's a problem. Because that play was the game.
Yeah.
You know, that play was a game. That was a 1:30, you say. So if they take 20 seconds off the shot clock and don't get a score, that game is over.
Yeah.
7 points with the ball with a minute to go. I mean, okay, maybe not over, but you know what I mean. You know, but suddenly 5 points with 1:30 on the clock, that's anybody's game again because you've still got 4-5 possessions left in the game. Wang did some actually in the one game they won last year at Newcastle. When I was there, he did something quite similar at the end of the game. He kind of took over the game and gave him the ball, and you thought, oh my god, this guy's kind of Kobe, you know, he's playing like Kobe. He's giving the ball, he's going to win the game for them. And but Plymouth's defense in that period of time was not great either because they kept switching, they kept leaving one of the big guys, Levi in particular, with Wang in front of him. They didn't have to switch; they were just kind of switching for the sake of switching on the screen. And you know, and leaving matchups and then not helping. And I thought they also demonstrated that they weren't really sure how they were going to win. But you keep going.
Let's get to it. So just to the point, because you just made me think of it, is Wolves Vilnius were 7 points down with 23 seconds to go last week and won by 2 in regulation. So it's not necessarily
it's
over.
Not impossible, but how many? Let's talk BBL. How often?
Yeah. So 15.2 seconds to go. Faulkner 1 for 2 from the free throw line to make it 90 to 88. He misses the second free throw. Wang pulls it off the rim, runs the court, loses the ball out of bounds. Plymouth ball, game over. Except they had a chat about it, turned it round and gave the ball to Surrey.
Well, the refs are clearly advocating. All I'll say is that Farouz and Tahir are clearly setting up some form of refereeing campaign for instant replay because that, I mean, I'm not an assessor, and I thought there was a couple of weird calls in this game. There was one, Surrey had a Jameson about to shoot an offensive rebound. Jameson got an offensive rebound on a foul shot in the third quarter, and the ref waved it off for something I still don't know what it was. I think he said it was a lane violation on the shooter, and it was like, no, it wasn't. I mean, there's nothing there. And there were a couple of other kind of weirdish calls. But this one, it was just, unfortunately, it was just there's a balls up. I'm sorry, you know.
The other thing is, like if that had been knocked out of Wang's hands and it was given to Plymouth, he wouldn't have just stood there and took it. He'd have been going mad.
Well, that and what got me was, I think it was Farouz. He immediately, he's the guy who's 10 feet away, who has the sight of the ball because he doesn't have to look through the back of Faulkner to see what's happening, right? He immediately points the other way. There's no doubt. He points the other way and he walks the other way. So here on the baseline is kind of looking around the corner, doesn't signal anything. So you've got the ref who overrules.
I think Gavin pointed that way as well. I think Gavin pointed for on the opposite side of the floor.
I didn't see. Well, it's not really his call.
It's not his call, but
no. But the guy who really doesn't have a view and who hasn't signaled is then coming across to say, I think it's that way. But what gets me was there was no pushback on that from the guy who was undoubtedly in the best position, who's actually signaled and has walked that way. So at that point, it's not just kind of a brief chat. It's like, are you sure? Really? Because I had a good line. What was your view? I signaled straight away. You didn't. You know, and you don't say that to each other, obviously, but you know, there is times whereby a ref has to hold his ground. You know, just say, are you sure? And they just got it horrendously wrong. And you know, on that and probably on that alone, I have a great deal of sympathy for Plymouth, really. I mean, that game was theirs.
You're
not saying they would have made 2 foul shots to win the game because they hadn't shown much of the capacity to do that. But ultimately, you know, that was as big an argument for replay as you will ever have. Dubious out of bounds calls in the last minute. Go and put them on the ref. Why not? What's the harm?
And one replay shows you enough. Steele with the head fake, open 3 for the win, misses it. Wang, nobody anywhere near him, comes flying through the air, jams it in, and
it was difficult that one because they were all switched out, and you know, there was the coverage wasn't Plymouth's coverage wasn't great. Lever had to switch out, Taylor Johnson is trying to block out or hold. Not Taylor Johnson. Taylor Johnson is trying to hold. It may have been Jameson on the weak side, and Levi's out there because he's been chasing it over on the screen, and Wang just runs from the top of the key and makes a hell of a play and steals shot just in time. But to be frank, Steele should have made that shot. Well, not should have made that shot. He could have made that shot. He's a shooter. He makes shots like that.
Yeah.
It would be awful defense to give him a look, a 3-point look with 1 second to go on the clock. It's like, you're playing at home. At that point in time, it is no threes. And they ran him off once, but not very well, really. It's like no threes. Stay. And they failed to do that. And Wang made a heck of a play.
He did. So let's get into the overtime. Let's go right to the end. Let's get to the
absolutely.
54.4 seconds to go. Taylor Johnson takes it to the rim, gets fouled. Faulkner is jumping up and down, livid that the pass didn't come his way. And then they started arguing about it, and they kept arguing about it and kept arguing about it, and it kept on going on.
I don't remember ever seeing anything like that.
No, like you've seen it, but it was one of them where it's in commentary. I thought they're arguing about this, and then I thought they'll stop.
I've seen argument. I've seen discussion.
Yeah,
but with a minute to go in the game, when your guys actually just made a play and got to the foul line, you're trying to put them off.
Because it looked like that's what Johnson was saying: is I'm at the free throw line. I'm about to make some free throws.
Honestly, I've seen some dysfunctional teams. One famous Cheshire team may have had a fight in the locker room at Sports Central once, and there'll be other stories I don't know about. Believe me. But I've never seen anything in the middle of the court like that, and it's all on Faulkner.
Yeah.
Now that isn't something which comes out of Taylor Johnson missing a pass. That's something which has been bubbling away for weeks. In practice, maybe they don't get on, maybe they do get on, whatever. I looked at Taylor Johnson's stats. Taylor Johnson has 175 shot attempts this year, 28 assists. So maybe Faulkner's of the view that Johnson shoots the ball a bit more than he should. Maybe that's a point to be made. But it doesn't matter. That's not the time to make it. It don't matter. It is all on Faulkner. Because Johnson's on the foul line. He's like, get out of my face. What are you doing? And he's like, why are you talking to me like this now? It's just utterly nuts. And he wouldn't let it go. And you got to tap the guy in the backside, walk away. If you're going to cuss him out, you cuss him out in the locker room afterwards, or you have it out in the locker room afterwards, but not before he's about to shoot 2 vital foul shots. I'm looking at Faulkner thinking, 2 weeks ago, you're saying you just want to be the guy who's handed the keys. If I'm PG, I'm like the barman who's saying, no, mate, you've had too many. Not a chance. And here's the thing, right? This all has knock-ons, right? Because if I'm LBC Dusha, I'm thinking, what, this guy?
Yeah.
This is a guy that the coach is playing instead of me. No, obviously he's not playing well enough to get them in. But what is going on there? What is the kind of the interaction going on there? Because you don't. It's nice to see a window into what is, the functionality, the dysfunction of teams. We saw a little bit with an individual kind of personalities of players. We've seen a little bit with Green at Newcastle. We've seen it with Asbury at Leicester. Now you see it with Faulkner at Plymouth, and there will be others as well. And there are other times where you'll see the occasional bit of pouting here or there. But that was just wild. And then they were done after that. It didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter what the score was in the game. That was done. Because everyone's looking over their own shoulder. The whole team is, what is going on here? They need to have an intervention. They need to be sat around in a circle, and they need to have an intervention because that environment is only going to get worse if it is not addressed immediately. And as I say, no way in hell does a basketball player with his teammate on the line, 54 seconds left in overtime, having maybe made the wrong play but got himself to the line anyway, and he's about to shoot.
It wasn't like if
Opener.
you'd thrown it out of bounds or he'd turned the ball over or something, then maybe you can have a
Yeah, but then you'd be playing the other way, so you wouldn't be
yeah,
saying
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah,
This is because he stood there.
yeah,
No way in hell do you try and make a point at that point.
yeah.
To a guy who, and actually the guy you're making the point to has been a pro for 5 years and from the Ivy League,
Mm,
and you're coming out of a year as a pro and wherever he played, and it just, ugh,
mm.
just
So
yeah.
anyway, Johnson had to make both free throws after all of that, and he did 101, 102, but then 36.9 seconds left. Wang with the step back three made it four, and then Johnson missed a three at the other end, and that was the game.
I don't care. They were done.
Yeah,
I believe it. The karma thing, the mentality thing. You can guarantee that after being told that Johnson was going to be shooting the next time down, can't
mm,
you?
mm,
It's just there's just too much going through. It's you're almost as a player, and I've never been in this way, but what I've picked up is that there's a lot going on in an overtime game. There's a
mm,
sensory overload going on.
mm,
Right? The only thing that you can take solace in is your togetherness as a group. And you hear coaches all the time talking about staying together, and you think of it as a
mm.
cliche, and everybody stay together. Yeah, yeah. It's like The Simpsons, good
Yeah,
waffles
yeah,
all together, all that stuff.
yeah.
And watch it, guys. It's the Thelma and Louise episode. It's awesome. Um, Sticking together is what good waffles do.
Mm,
Anyway, they mean it, but it's real. It's
mm,
tangible.
mm,
If you don't stick together, you haven't got anything else in the heat of battle. And they didn't stick together, or at least Faulkner didn't stick together with Johnson. And the other two guys on the court are new, so they don't
mm,
do any different. And that's troublesome. They're
mm,
going to have to stop. But they either change their mentality or they change their personnel, but they have to have some form of intervention.
mm.
Surrey, to be fair, Wang made plays at
He
the end,
did.
but I mean they got themselves into a position where they should have lost, and they survived. It's probably the best way of doing it.
Mm,
The mark on them is basically you have to take them away from the 3 point line, and you can handle them. If you don't take them away from the 3 point line, they're going to have a shooter's chance. But no lead is big enough for them to be
no,
safe.
no. Johnson, 24 points and 5 assists. Faulkner, 23 points and 4 assists. Outwards, 19 points and 7 rebounds. And just for the record, as they were on their debut, Green, 13 points. Levi, 9 points, 12 rebounds.
Atwood played 45 minutes as well,
Yeah,
which shows that PJ rates his stability more than anything else.
Wang, 8 for 10, 22 points and 6 rebounds. Robinson, 20 points. Gooden, 17 points. They were 14 of 25 from three and 40 for 66 from field goals.
That makes them 34 for 65 in the two games that they've won from the 3 point line. Maybe a lesson there.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the final game. Caledonia Gladiators 84, Leicester Riders 83. No Buttrick and no Lowell in this one. Police are gunning threes early on. Ali Hadzic trying to go to work inside. Leicester not quite keeping with them. It's 26-18 after 7:30.
Yeah, well, again, Leicester starting five have defensive issues. And I'm a bit out on Bridges. I haven't figured him out. And I know he didn't shoot the ball particularly well given his standards this week, but obviously he's an efficient scorer. But
he'd missed 3 shots going into this game, going into Thursday's game. Sorry,
I think he missed sort of 7 this week, but that happens. It's a regression to the mean. What I'm a little bit more concerned about is he doesn't really seem to have much of a kind of a defensive presence under the basket, and they've looked better, and they looked better in this game when Walker played, even though Walker's nowhere near as mobile as Bridges. And what that meant was I thought Caledonia were able to score early on relatively comfortably around the rim, and that's not Caledonia's massive strength. They're not a great scoring team. 26 points in 7.5 minutes. I don't think they've scored 100 this season. I'm not sure that they will, given the speed that they play at. So, that light, and also the scouting report kind of assessment of some of the Leicester rookies ain't great either. And it's kind of a tear your hair out team, which, oh my god, that's great, oh my god, that's horrible type of team, quite a schizophrenic team. But the game changed when Connor and Kimball came in. Basically, Walker, to be fair, because then you've got a lineup which is actually playing defense and understands a little bit more about the team concepts.
Washington 4-point play. Bench unit scored 14 consecutive points, and Leicester from 26-18 down to 26-32 ahead.
Yeah, and look at that bench unit. It's all about personnel. Who was it? It's Washington, it's McKenzie, it's Bowman, it's Walker, and it was Idowu, I think, but maybe Idowu came out again. I can't remember. But in the event, Bowman, his second year, basically playing at the. It wouldn't have been Walker and Idowu, I don't think. It'd be maybe one of the starters. But Bowman playing primarily at the 3 or the 4 spot, knocked down a couple of shots, got out in transition, but he got out in transition out of their defense. The defense, and also the secret is that Caledonia's bench is offensively challenged. And when Whelan came out of this game, in particular, they struggled. Whelan was plus 21 in this game, the 1-point game. And that's plus minus, which does tell you something. Because Caledonia really struggled to score the ball with their bench guys in. They struggled to create any degree of shots because their bench guys came in as Leicester's better defenders came in. So Kyle Johnson's really struggling to get going because I don't think the spot minutes help him. I think he's a guy who needs to be playing quite regularly to get lots of touches because he's a volume shooter. But they didn't have Buttrick to get them anything cheap in this game around the rim. Jovovic is hit and miss. And Jimenez played a little bit in this game, and Malcolm played a little bit in this game, who aren't really going to create that many shots. So their offense struggled. Leicester got out and ran a couple of times. And at this point, Leicester have gone from looking okay to looking like a really, really good team, primarily because of who they've got on the court.
29 bench points there in the first half, and then same again in the second half. Poliza hit some shots. Starters got it out to 63-52 after 7 minutes, and then Leicester's bench came back in, went on a run.
Man, I was on my
20-6.
I know, and it's different now, and I get that, and they've got a lot of games, Caledonia, and they've got to spread the minutes and all this stuff. But I was thinking, just keep playing your starters. Keep playing. Give them another 3 or 4 minutes. If you give them another 3 or 4 minutes, if you're up 18 at the quarter, the way they're playing, and they could have been because they were playing really well and they were in a rhythm, then that game could be done there and then, and you can play the bench the rest of the way or close to done, But the way now, and we never had as many players as they did. We never had 11 players or 10 players, so it was easier, I suppose, to a certain degree. But there were times whereby if your team was in a rhythm in the third quarter and you were going away, you would just keep playing them until they were tired, until they needed to put their hand up. And different in the first quarter when you need to get rest, but in the third quarter, and he didn't. And the same thing happened. Let's be honest, the Leicester guys came back into it. Rob was really going to his tried and trusted. And as soon as Whelan stepped off the court, then Caledonia's offense created.
20-6 run it was to 69-72. Let's get to the end. 140 to go. Leicester up 5, 76-81. Asbury fouls Poliza on a 3, but he missed all 3 free throws. Other end of the floor.
You thought at that point they were kind of done.
Yeah.
You just thought it was a bad foul by Asbury.
Yeah, it was.
And I was surprised that Asbury was in the game instead of McKenzie at this point. I think he's really trying to figure out just to let these guys play through mistakes and to see what he's got in relation to giving them experience and times. But in relation to absolutely winning that game, difficult to see. Pinson played great in the fourth quarter. Pinson has this ability to take over games and kind of be silent at the points as well. He played great. But it was difficult to see how they weren't going to be better with McKenzie on the court. So Asbury commits a bad foul, but Poliza, and obviously they've been through the emotion of the game on Wednesday night, misses all 3. So you think, well, he's tired, and you just thought it was just done, didn't you?
Yeah, if Leicester score on similar to the thing that you said earlier, if Leicester score on the next play, but Asbury stepped out of bounds, so gave them the ball back to them with 1:23 to go, and then
rookie. I think McKenzie came in at that point.
Yeah. Whelan round a screen, knocks down a 3 with 1:10 to go. It's 79-81.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Whelan hadn't touched the ball for I think DeBose had touched the ball 3 or 4 times before that in a row and struggled a bit. And so Whelan basically took over because Whelan wasn't going to lose that game because it was his old team. That was my impression.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, Whelan he has become, the only 2 guys who compete with him in relation to kind of British shooters over the past 15 years. British shooters since Bridgie, if you're watching, would be Robinson and Washington.
Yeah.
In BBL terms.
Yeah.
Robinson and Connor Washington.
Yeah.
And Patrick Whelan probably has a better finishing ability at the rim than either of those.
Yeah.
Justin may have Justin more of a pull-up guy. Connor a three-point assassin. But Patrick Whelan, the ability to shoot the three and also to finish at the rim right hand and left hand.
Yeah.
And, Patrick Whelan 2 years ago, I think from memory, I have to go back and listen to it again. I think I was arguing he should be MVP ahead of Gino Crandall.
There was a period of time, and then Gino had like 2 or 3 games in a row, and you went, oh, maybe not.
Maybe not exactly.
That period of time was like March or something as well.
Yeah,
it was
shot like 47%.
Actually, hang on a minute. Yeah.
And this is in a league full of Americans, and so we kind of underestimate just a little bit just how good Patrick Whelan is on a skill level, but more so the mentality. It's probably be helped by playing in Leicester, playing with people like Crandall and Jackson and Loving, people like that. But the mentality and the look in his eyes in both the games, the Wednesday night and the Sunday game, he's bloody good. And sometimes he gets left behind when people think about it. And ultimately, that shot and the next one, but this shot in particular, stepping to his left, whereby the scouting reports to send him left, and pulling up on his left to shoot that three, when if he misses that three, the game is over.
Yeah.
That's a real.
There wasn't much space on that one. The next one was more open.
Well, the next one was we'll get to rookies in a minute, but that was a clutch three. And it just made me think, this guy is. We underestimate how good he is.
57.4 seconds, illegal screen by Thomas, leaning into one, his fourth.
Thomas was in the game, but Thomas had hardly played. Bowman played most of the game at the 4. Thomas picked up a couple of fouls, didn't play again to the third quarter. Then he played a little bit, but he was, he had 21 and 11 and 5 on Thursday. So he's a rookie coming off a good game. So the reality is, what happens is he struggles in this game, and he never quite got a rhythm for the game. But I didn't really have a problem with that call. I thought he kind of got
it was a definite foul. And then Police are just a brain melt, inbounds the ball and didn't get back in court. Now maybe you say don't give it back to him, but he's got to get into court as well.
That was weird. I mean, I'm assuming that he must have had his foot on the line as he was kind of trotting along the sideline.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought Chris had called a half court because he called back foot, but it wasn't a half court.
Yeah.
But in any event, it wasn't like Gareth was more pissed off with his player. Patrick was really, they weren't arguing with the ref. No. So and even then you're thinking this team is mentally tired. Police just missed 3 foul shots. Then he's made that mental mistake as well. So he's tired. He's done.
Mackenzie drives, misses. Adowu offensive rebound, misses. And then 31.9 seconds to go. Whelan a bit more open this time for 3, 82-81.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Adowu had a good look. I mean, Mackenzie, I mean, the whole game, it was a kind of an absolute summary of the two teams. Basically, Leicester, quick, athletic, managed to get to the rim at will. The amount of time they ran the horn set, and Mackenzie or Pinson was able to turn the corner and get to the rim or get fouled, on simple action stuff because they had the foot speed. Whereas Caledonia, more deliberate in their screens. They've got the big guys shooting the ball well on the wing, Malcolm and Poliza, and Moore inside, and Ali Hodzic inside. So they're a lot more kind of traditional. And this time, for the first time, they defended Mackenzie quite well. It might have been Onwas. But the ball fell to as you say, Adowu 8 feet from the basket. And the problem was Adowu had only just come in the game. He hadn't been in for long because Walker had played most of the fourth quarter. Bridges wasn't anywhere to be seen. And he just didn't have his touch, just, for whatever reason, it wasn't there. He short rimmed it. And they come down the far end, and I'm afraid we had Myron Thomas had a Taj Green moment. Dubose Whale gave the ball to Dubose, relocated at the top of the key. Because they'd switched, Thomas was guarding Whelan. Thomas was stuck in the middle of the key because he didn't know whether to stick or twist when the drive from Dubose came. Whelan's relocated at the top for the most open rhythm 3-point shot you could ever imagine. And there was never any doubt in my mind that was going in. And we used to say, again, I'm harking back here, there are certain guys you do not let beat you. And in fact, if you go back to the Caledonia TV show, you've got Gareth Murray swearing vociferously, saying, "You don't let him touch that."
Yeah.
And Leicester, who know more than anything, and Patrick Williams just made a 3. Unfortunately, the rookie did. He was just caught in no man's land. He blew the assignment, and and it wasn't aware of where the threat was, and Whelan knocks the shot down.
Timeout, Leicester, no advance of the ball, obviously, with still 31.9 left. Pinson, not really much space, ended up airballing a shot, but a big play by Mackenzie to come up with the loose ball. He almost lost the dribble and then somehow managed to beat the shot clock buzzer with 7.7 seconds to go to put Leicester ahead 82-83.
I think he double dribbled. I watched it back. I think it was a double dribble because I think he comes to the middle. And initially I thought the ball was being swiped away from him. When he comes to the middle initially to his right hand to kind of raise up and shoot it, he puts the ball in his shooting pocket. He picks it up he has 2 hands on the basketball. And then, I don't know if it slips out of his hands or whatever, but it kind of bobbles away. Now, that's a discontinued. Now, if that ball's not been touched, that was a discontinued dribble because he'd had 2 hands on it. Refs obviously assumed the ball had been touched. Nevertheless, he continued. He had more on him. And what Mackenzie has this ability to do, probably better than any guy in the league, is go extremely fast and then on the dribble and then stop and pull up on balance. And he does it primarily going to the corners, going to the wings on the curls. He does it a lot of times when he's only got the ball with 5 seconds to go. It's almost like he's focused on getting to a spot as fast as he can, but he has the body control, which is pretty rare, actually, to however fast he's going to remain on balance, set his feet, turn and shoot it in rhythm, and he knocks that shot down repeatedly. And Moore played decent defense, beating him to the spot. You'd probably say, if you're Moore, maybe push up on him a little bit more, but then you risk giving up a foul. I think maybe you can get a bit closer to him and dissuade him from pulling up and make him drive and then try and swat his shot. But he made a great play.
So then timeout, Caledonia advance the ball. He comes into Whelan. He has a Dowu on him because they've switched, so he sees more inside. He's got Washington on his back, and he hooks it in 84-83, 1.7 seconds to go. Yeah,
they ran a nice little play. The first option was to throw it to Poliza on the baseline, which they tried to do, and the ball was knocked out of bounds again with 4/10 coming off the clock. And then the second setup was exactly the same. And basically, Poliza ran the baseline, and Moore and Dubose are at the top of the key kind of free throw line. And they run it. It's almost an elevator doors whereby Whelan is coming up from under the basket through the screen, through the gap between the 2 Caledonia Gladiators players, and they both set screens to kind of shut the door so Whelan can have an open shot. But Rob's put Connor in the game because Connor's been around and Connor's seen a lot and he's got a brain. So what Connor does, he does the right thing. He thinks, I'm not sure I can get through that elevator door, so I'm going to switch that. Which basically, because it's Patrick Whelan, he's going to be one who shoots the ball. So rather than me getting stuck on a screen and 3 guys standing there watching, I'm going to shout to switch. And it was Edohu who stepped up to take away the shot, which is fine because there's only 6 seconds left. And you're thinking you don't want Whelan shooting the ball. What Caledonia did, what Whelan did incredibly well was appreciate that switch. And what it must have been a design play because as soon as Whelan caught the ball, Moore rolled down into the post, almost like they're anticipating the switch. And he got himself positioned on Washington, 8 feet from the basket. And Whelan, with the presence of mind, and also the unselfishness, having just made 2 threes. Right? Well, not this. This is type of, when I say people don't know how to win, right? Winning basketball. This is winning basketball. Right? Mackenzie's play was winning basketball. Okay. Has the presence of mind to throw it down in there to someone who's 6'11", and a genuine 6'11" row, not your 6'8" guys you normally call 6'11". Moore has shown he's got a nice touch, and it's interesting again because Gareth had already put Moore in 40 seconds before, primarily because they were going to switch everything on the screens. for when Leicester had the ball. And Moore is just the guy you want to switch because he's long, he can challenge guards and challenge shots. He's more mobile than Ali Hodzic. So Moore's got the ball, one touch. Washington plays as good a defense as he can, and Moore just rises up, just knocks down a good shot, knocks down a little runner. But it was a great play execution, but primarily Whelan. Whelan made decisions.
He. There's a lot of players would have shot that ball.
I would say 99% of BBL.
But that was the better play to throw it inside. Yeah. They put a few ticks back on, so Leicester ended up with 2 seconds, I think it was. And McKenzie got a decent look from 20 feet.
A fantastic play by Onwas, because what happens is Whelan, McKenzie steps out to catch the basketball, and Whelan is a little bit late. So instead of staying in front of McKenzie, he kind of shoots the gap and he doesn't get it. And that gives McKenzie a straight up line to one dribble jump shot, which if you were picking a guy in the league you didn't want to shoot a one dribble jump shot to beat you, it would probably be him. It wouldn't be many more that you would say would be more likely to make it. But Onwas knows the clock. So Onwas knows that there's only 2 seconds left. Now he's got Asbury on the wing, and it's on his side. But he knows that because McKenzie's taking the dribble, he doesn't have time to throw the ball to Asbury. So Onwas basically does a Superman. He takes one step and he flies at him, 2 hands up, leaving his man. Now, I've been around, I've seen many BBL players who will be stood next to their man and saying, "Oh, Patrick, it's your fault."
Yeah.
No, you lost your man, not my fault. I'm not doing that. But he made the play. And that changed the shot, because McKenzie doesn't leave a shot, 3 feet short, unless he's had a significant challenge on that shot. And, and if you look, when they come off the bench, Paliza and somebody else, I'm not sure, they're pointing at Onwas. They knew the play that he made. And that type of thing, again, that's a winning play. Because it's easy for that guy to stand on the wing and say, "My guy didn't beat us. Not my fault." But so yeah, it was an excellent game. I thought it showed both teams in a microcosm. They're both pretty sound teams. They're both figuring themselves out. They have Caledonia have issues with their bench scoring. Leicester have issues with their starting defense, and also the inconsistency of play from their rookies, from their Americans, who are all talented but aren't overly consistent. That's difficult for a coach, because you don't know what they're going to get night in, night out. So you've got to read every game. You can't just say, "This is my lineup all the time." And I think both teams will be probably top 4. I don't think there'll be, other than London, I don't think there'll be 2 better teams than those 2 this season. But I do think they've got stuff to clean up, and I do think they can be better. The other thing is replay Claxon. Clifton Moore made a 2-point jump shot on the buzzer at half time.
Yes.
In counterplay. There are still photographs going around which might suggest that shot on the buzzer was literally still in his hand as the buzzer went. No replay, no check, 2 points. Referee can only guess because the ball's over there and the clock's over there.
Yeah.
It's inconceivable to me that even if you can't, that even if you say we haven't got cameras, we haven't got action, we haven't got this, we haven't got that, you've got a clock on top of the basket. You've got a camera which can show when the ball was still in his hands, right? If that is available, and if it's not available, you go with the rest call, but it should be, other than maybe Cheshire, where they haven't got clocks on the basket. I'm not sure if they have at Bristol. That's about it.
Bristol's are on the wall.
Yeah, Bristol. Yeah, so Bristol and Cheshire, I think, and that, to be honest, that should be changed, because that should be sorted. They should be required to have the clocks on the basket. I can't believe that's beyond the technological. Put cameras on the basket, but they can't put clocks on the basket. But even if it's just that, who wants to see a game given to the wrong team on the basis of footage? I'm not saying this happened in this game because it was half time, so turns out. But see, that's the board, that's on the buzzer, that's at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, the wrong team wins, and everybody knows that 10 seconds after the buzzer. I mean, how much do we want to keep shooting ourselves in the foot with this? How much do we want to set ourselves up to be shot in the foot for it? Is it an attempt to create controversy and clicks? I don't know. And I know Richard Stokes was wrong with Drew and Jay. And I get that there are potential issues in relation to what cameras you've got and what coverage you've got and all this stuff. But for clock situations in the last few seconds, where I can see almost immediately where a ref can just rewind a button, it's nonsense. And it's going to, in this, I hate the phrase, but in this day and age, albeit we're technically in the same age we were 25 years ago, it's not like the Stone Age, which is why I hate the phrase, but it's nonsense. And I'm just saying this so we can put it on repeat when it does happen. And we can instead of doing the show, we can just kind of play it for 10 minutes on repeat.
Clips, highlights.
On the highlights.
Sunday night breakdown highlights.
Exactly, yeah, highlights. All the time that Forrest has been proved right, that's 2 minutes. Yeah. All the time that we've been proved wrong, that's half an hour.
Yeah, probably. So Whelan was 8 of 12 for 24 points. Beliza 5 of 7 from 3, made the first 5 for 18 points. DeBose 11 points and 8 assists. Ali Hodgic also with 11. Bowman 6 of 7 for 15 points. Pinson 14, Washington 10, 46 bench points they ended up with. Leicester. Quick run through the table. London Lions now 11-0, which in this day and age is I think 7th best start to a season, unbeaten start to the season. Kingston's 23 is obviously the record. You had an 18, I think it was.
Yeah, I think we did. That might be the one we didn't even win it.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. And then Leicester, Sheffield, and somebody else had a 12. Who was the other team had a 12? Somebody else. I apologize to whoever that other team was that had a 12 game. Oh, it's Kingston. Of course it was. Kingston had a 12 as well. And then it's London at 11. Bristol are in second, 7 and 3. Caledonia 5 and 2. Leicester and Cheshire both 5 and 4. Sheffield 5 and 5. Newcastle 3 and 6. Manchester 2 and 6. Surrey now 2 and 7, and Plymouth 1 and 9. So that, I mean, I know below the rim do a table without London. It's quite a bum fight behind London.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's going to be. I mean, because particularly as the schedules have been so unbalanced so far, the team they've got a lot of kind of ordering and organising to do in relation to some teams have played each other 3 times. It's just nuts, and twice. Some teams haven't played London at all. Some teams haven't played Surrey at all. It's not balanced at this point. We need your RPI back, actually. In relation to those kind of runs from the beginning of the season, of course, this not being a league season, this won't count, will it?
Well, it starts to the season, so
it's a regular season now. We're in the regular season.
I'm trying to think now. Was Sheffield's 12-0? Was that a league season or was it a conference season?
I'm guessing
I think it might have been the year they won the league. So
I think it would be a league season because the conferences were quite competitive. I am still a little bit depressed by the whole. We're having to start to advertise the trophy now because it's kind of the next bit of competitiveness. And it's in January, and so we've got the adverts out for the trophy. It's like I really do miss the cup. I really miss it. Sorry, it's like an old friend. I just missed the jeopardy. I know the jeopardy brings. Actually, there's one more thing. I'm reliably informed, and this is another reason for commentators in the venue from last week that in fact Sam Decker and the London Lions bench did get warned at Sheffield and told to sit down, but it wasn't during anything that was on camera, so we didn't see it. So I officially corrected the record on that one. If you'd given a T, you would have been happy, I think. But yeah,
we will make sure it's changed in the SMB Hansard.
Yeah, in the archive. That's really
one for Philip Brown there.
I love the fact that is so ridiculous it could ever think of coming to pass. But yeah, this is a historical archive, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. It'll be time.
Yes, eventually when we're taken off the air, when the revolution comes. It'll be there for all to see. See if you will keep us up.
So we're back to Sunday next week because I'm not working next Sunday. I've got a Sunday off. So we'll be back to normal next week. But enjoy whatever basketball you do watch this week. And Dave and I, you look like you're about to announce something there, Dave. Before
Yeah, yeah, and enjoy it. And also, if it's basketball, WWF wrestling, or Leicester v Newcastle, take your pick.
Okay, yeah, indeed,
Again,
indeed.
Leicester
That's
v
Saturday
Newcastle,
night, isn't
round
it?
three.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So enjoy that, and we'll be back next Sunday to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.